Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Um, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all their support. Some of the comments up on YouTube for my previous videos that were there. Thank you very much. Also, I wanted to say thank you to all my customers. I haven't put out a video in some time just because I was very busy with Black Friday. And it's sort of come and gone now, but it was very successful. And again, thank you to all my customers and people have been purchasing off me, and inquiries and things like that. I did purchase a new camera to upgrade my photos on my website, so that that is something that took a little bit of time for me to learn and get the photos up, and I've added a few more sections to my website. So now we have watches, bracelets, tools, and parts. There's not very many parts there, but there is some parts. That's the CanadianWatchmaker.com, and you can also find me on Instagram, and I do sales on eBay also. So if there's anything that you're interested in, everything is on my website. If there's some tools that you need, I'm located in Toronto, Canada. I do ship out. You can always get into contact with me. I do have some tools left. So I wanted to put out a video. In the previous videos that I had out, we talked about some issues, and we talked about some servicing characteristics, what to look out for and what we look out for here. For example, beat rate. How does beat rate actually change when the roller jewel isn't being changed, and some of the effects on a watch, and how that's illustrated with beat rate on a timing machine. I also talked about oiling. I talked about with a little bit more in-depth cleaning. There is a little bit of a write-up on my website about that. So what I wanted to do now was I wanted to take the time to do a video, or actually this is going to be a couple of videos on this watch here, just to show everybody exactly how I service a watch here. This way they could see exactly the amount of time that's gone into it, and the attention to detail, and then also what we look out for when it comes to servicing a watch. So this was a pocket watch that I got a few years ago, and I haven't had the time to service it, but I couldn't think of a better watch to do a service on. It's a Canadian Railroad watch. So being the Canadian watchmaker, I said, hey, why not? It needs to be done. It's something a little bit larger, so it's a little bit easier for me to video this and show everybody what I'm doing. So for example, when we're oiling, we're going to be able to see a little bit more detail, how we collect the oil, how much oil to put. When we're disassembling, what are the checks? When we're disassembling, we're going to take out the microscope. We're going to take a look at some of the things through the microscope. I'm going to try to do this video with very little editing because I really don't have the time to sit and edit, getting ready for the holiday season coming up, and customers' watches getting done, and then also watches that need to be serviced for sales. So I'm going to try my best to do this on the fly here, so I apologize if sometimes it takes me a second to get things in order. But this is a model 1892 pocket watch. It's a 17 jewel pocket watch, and it is a railroad grade. It's lever set, and as you can see here from the case is a little bit worn. The gold filled is almost gone, but we're still going to give it a polish. It is an acrylic crystal that's on here. Now it does wind and set. So I do know that it works. When I purchased it, it was working. But again, I don't know the condition inside. If it's like some of all the other pocket watches or vintage watches that I find over the years, hopefully it doesn't have bent regulator pins or bent banking pins, but we're gonna take it apart. We're gonna have a look. This way everybody could see exactly what's involved in a true service. The pre-cleaning, the depthing, and the checking of end shake and side shake for all the gears, the condition of the gears. If anything needs to be burnished, we're going to take out the Jacko tool and we're going to do some pivot work. And then last but not least, when we're all together, when the watch is all together and it's fully serviced and it's working properly, it might take a little bit of time if we need to replace the mainspring. But this is my watch, so depending on the condition of the mainspring, for the video's sake, I might use, if it's in good shape, I'll use the existing one, but it should be changed each time. We're going to go through to adjust the watch. And exactly how do we adjust the watch using the timing machine and having a certain amount of amplitude on the watch, and how we sort of amplify the errors that are in a balance. But in order to do that, when this watch left the factory, it was adjusted and they were extremely accurate. So we do have a very good benchmark to get to, or better. But in order to do that, the watch has to be completely serviced correctly. If it isn't, we cannot get to that level. So this is not an Inca block. This is not an Inca block balance. The balance jewels in this watch have no shock protection. So what that means is we're gonna have to disassemble the balance from the balance cock. Normally, if it's an Inca block, you can leave the balance on the balance clock, put it into cleaning machine, take out the jewels by opening up the Inca block, you know, cleaning the jewels properly, putting them back in, and so forth, and then adjusting the hairspring and going about it that way. But with these pocket watches, the balance complete has to be separated from the cock. So one of the other things that you really have to be careful of, and your screwdrivers have to be sharpened properly, and we're going to go through that in this step also. I have a screwdriver set here, but we'll prepare those in the next video, or we'll do a little bit of disassembly from here. The screws are very, very small that hold the jewel settings in these watches. And there's not a lot of threads on them, and they could very easily be stripped. And that's one of the things that I find also when I get a hold of some of these older pocket watches. Either the screws are not tightened enough, or the screws are tightened way too much, and then they're threaded. Or the thread is just completely gone, or it's hanging on just by a little bit. So you have to be very, very careful when you're working with these. I have a lot of experience in pocket watches. Some of the older ones in the you know, in key wind also. It's some of the things that I learned to become a watchmaker on. The two things that I did the most was the old pocket watches and small little ladies baguette watches. You know, you go from one world in size to another world in size. So that's one of the things I wanted to just let everybody know. So we're gonna have to be very, very careful. There isn't too much polishing by the initial look here that we're gonna have to do. It's a beautiful balance on this. It's a compensated balance. Looks like gold screws on there. I'm not sure if the settings are gold in this watch too. I'd have to look it up. It's adjusted to 5 positions. Like I said, 1907. So we're gonna take this apart, and we're gonna have a go at this one. So first but not least, let's take a look at what we have here. So I'm just gonna adjust the camera a little bit here, as you can get a more of a close-up. I don't know, how's that, of what I'm working on. So I guess that's going to be my mark there. I'll just use that piece of Rodico, and if I keep everything right there, hopefully everybody could see everything. If it does move out of the way, I apologize. So in this video, we're just going to start off everything. We're going to go through the initial inspection. take a look at how everything is winding, if the hands are setting. Again, I've never gone into this. I've never had a look at it. And then I'm going to show you another project near the end of what I'm working on. Usually it's on Sunday nights, depending on how tired I am, working all the hours that I am. But I started something a few weeks ago or even a few months ago, and slowly but surely I had to spend a little bit more time getting my equipment ready. I had to remount my lathe because I wasn't just making balance staffs. But again, I'll talk about that a little bit more to the end. So like I said, this is a lever set movement. And we're gonna unscrew this here to get into the lever set to see if the keyless works is setting. If everybody could see that. All right, it's a beautiful watch, and on it. Oh wow! Right away, see, this is a good indication of a sign of things to come. So upon initial inspection here, we have a little bit, and I'm just going to get a piece of pegwood here so I could show everybody everything. So there is a chip in the dial here. The lever looks really, really dirty. Looks like there's a lot of dirt that's underneath this. So this is going to be something that's going to take some time to do properly, but we'll get it there. The minute hand is actually installed upside down. So I don't know if you could see this in the video or not. I'm going to try my best to show that. So that's one of the surprises right away. We take off the bezel, we open up the lever to set the watch, and it doesn't look like the hands were set. They're a little bit off. They're not quite at 12 o'clock also, so whoever put this back together before definitely didn't take their time and do a quality control after. So let's get the hands off this watch, and I'm not going to make the videos too long. It's going to be more, I don't know how many we're going to get, maybe about 5 or 6 videos with the disassembly and everything, and then the reassembly, and then the adjusting is going to take some time. So I'll try my best to show as much as I'm doing from there. So first thing we want to do is, one of the key rules as a watchmaker, when a watchmaker goes into a watch, works on a watch, comes out, there's not supposed to be any indication whatsoever that they were ever working on the watch. So you want to protect the dial, and this is how I do it here. I actually, on something like this, I have a little bit more clearance between the dial and the hands. So I actually use 2 pieces of plastic because these dials do crack very easily, and you don't want to put a lot of pressure. And sometimes when I see people, or I'm watching them take off the hands, they're always jamming, like going in really, really tight, and you don't want to do that because the pipes of the hands are a particular diameter. And now that we have the hour and minute hand off, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So these are all little things that have to be taken into account when servicing a watch, and even more a wristwatch. Best way to get those off now is very, very gently. So there's actually oil on the hands, which is not good, which is making them stick. So this one here needs a little bit more. So that hand was on there. I really like taking my time to do things. There's sort of no rush. There we go. So that's the hour hand. So now that takes care of that. So as you can see, there's no mark on that dial from removing those hands. Now we have the second hand to contend with, And we can't use the same levers for that. We might not be able to use two plastics actually. So I have a smaller set of hand levers or hand removers that are used for chronographs. And actually when you get these levers, either the ones that I just used a second ago, or this one's really down, so I might need to get something a little bit more fine. Yeah, I have to grab something else. These ones are a little bit too thick. You have to polish the inside of the hand levers in order to use them, because but that's something that I'll show in another video. So this is a hand remover. Well, whoever set this down way too far. So this plastic might be a little bit too thick for this. Give me one sec. So this is what we get sometimes when we're servicing watches. I'll talk about the pipes on the hand in a minute. What I was referring to when we're taking the hands off, that you have to be careful. I'll put those in a safe, secure place in a moment. So I got a bag that's not as thick, but we have to be very careful. So I wonder now if there's actually something wrong with this pivot. This hand is set right. This hand is pushed right down onto the dial. So there we go. Just slowly work it. No rush. And we're done. So that is the second hand. So one of the things I notice sometimes when I see, or when you're removing the hands, or when we're removing the hands, you really have to take your time and be mindful of everything that you're doing. So when you're removing the hands and you're holding the tools, you don't want to press really hard this way. Because you can damage, depending on the hand, the pipe, especially in the chronograph, because the hands are very small, the pipes are very small. You can see the pipe on the hand here. I don't know if you could see that, but the pipe on the hand, if you bend that in any way, it's not good, because now the hand's not going to sit properly. It's going to sit a little bit off, especially on the small second hands. These hands have to be cleaned. So I'm going to clean those and do those again. But yeah, you got to be very careful. Like I said, especially with the chronograph hands, when you're taking them off, you don't want to put a lot of pressure in. You just want to snug it around the outside, and you want to use the underneath of the top of the hand to lift and allow the tool to do the work. You don't have to exert a lot of pressure. Sometimes you do, but never in. You just want it in and down, and then go from there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get this here to protect the hands. And we'll be back to those after. We're going to give those a little bit of a cleaning afterwards, and then we're going to check to see the size of the pipe that's on this watch. And the reason why that sort of went down, the piping on that second hand. And I do have a very good tool for that, which if we need to use it, we will. And it closes the piping on the hand. I use it quite a bit actually for vintage chronographs because the chronograph hands are very, very small. The pipes are small. The pivots are very, very delicate. And over the years, from taking the hands off and on, the pipe on there is brass most of the time. And it does become loose. And then also just from resetting from the snapping action on the second hands, especially the sub-second hands, they do wear a little bit. So I do have a great tool that compresses from a 360-degree angle. It compresses properly the piping of the hands. So if need be, we'll have to take care of this. So next here, we have to get the movement out and work on that. But what I'd like to do first is, I'm going to put this back on. I'm going to remove the balance because that'll get that out of the way. Again, any of these old cases here, you got to be very, very careful, especially when they're threaded. There is a different issue with some of them that are hinged, but you want to be very, very careful when you're putting the threads on, because if you cross-thread the case threads, it's not a good thing. Sometimes they get jammed right back up. Sometimes they're okay after, but sometimes if you cross-thread them, the case is done. So when choosing the right screwdriver, so we can see here we have a screwdriver that fits almost the whole diameter of the screw, and also it only goes down about halfway. So you see there isn't too much wiggle. So this screwdriver here I know we're going to be able to use. I have a few different screwdriver sets. Sometimes when I'm working on quartz or wristwatches, especially the quartz, I find the screw heads are a little bit wider, or the screw slots are a little bit wider, not as deep. So I have a couple different sets of screwdrivers that I use. That way they don't require as much adjusting when we're going through on a particular watch. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to remove the balance. We're going to put it in a safe place. That way when we're removing it, if anything does happen, we're in the clear. So one of the things you want to watch out for also when you're disassembling anything is how do the threads feel, especially on the older watches. You know, we found the second hand that was upside down, so now I'm sort of a little bit more, not really cautious, but I'm on the guard for anything else that might be wrong when the watch was assembled. Are the screws really, really tight? You got to be careful because you don't want to snap off the head on a screw, because then that's a whole other thing. So we have the balance there from now, and I'm not going to go through a balance inspection here now. I will do that on the next video. But on an initial inspection, we have to look at the pivots on... Okay, so here's one of the other things that I find. I'm going to try and hold this balance to show everybody this. This is one of the things that I found in a lot of pocket watches. And so maybe somebody has re-snapped this this watch, because there's punch marks and scratches on the back of the balance bridge, or the balance cock here. So sometimes a pocket watch that I just finished doing for somebody had the same thing, and you could see there's some punch marks right into the plate here. So let me secure this. So as we get into this pocket watch, we're starting to see a few more things. This is part of my own collection. So I'm going to protect the balance here, but you could see some punch marks on there, and I'll explain why some people would do that. So what happens is the tolerance in a watch, especially in the escapement, everything has its divisions, okay? So what happens is if somebody uses a balance that's a little bit too long, all of a sudden now, when the bridge, or the balance cock in this case, is screwed down onto the watch, it stops the balance. So the easier thing to do is to punch, and you could see there's three punches on this one, and there's about 5 or 6 on that one. So what they do is they punch holes to lift the metal. I don't know why, instead of just doing it the proper way. To punch to lift it up, okay? Now, the correct way to do that is to adjust the balance, right? If the balance is too big or too long, you have to adjust the balance. Or you get another balance, or when you first got it, especially, I'll go through another video when we're doing a balance staff, you measure 3 times. Now, there is another way in some of these old pocket watches. The problem with doing this also is, 1, it damages the plates. 2, if this is the main plate of the watch, and you raise the balance cock straight up, then you're okay. But what happens is you're actually not raising it straight, you're actually raising it on an angle. So now you're increasing the resistance because the jewel hole, when the balance cock moves like this, the jewel hole is actually moving back a little bit. So in that position, the friction is going to be higher when the watch goes on its side. Even when it's flat up, but you'll see it more on its side. So just in doing that, you're already affecting the timing. So there's 2 ways to do that. Either you lift the jewel setting a little bit, which it can be done if it's done properly, or you adjust the balance staff, or you get another balance staff. Okay, but all that takes time. So for some reason, this is one of the things that we see also here. Okay, so now with the balance out, one of the great things about some of these old watches is we could actually adjust the banking pins. So the banking pins are right here. I don't know if you can see them in the video. We got the banking pins right there. So we could actually adjust the banking pins. Now, I don't recommend this for everybody, because if you don't understand exactly how an escapement is supposed to work, you do not want to touch the banking pins, okay? But this, if the banking pins have been moved on this watch, and for example, see there was a cracked entry or exit pallet jewel, right? Now all of a sudden, if they don't have a correct size jewel, which we don't know what we're going to see here, because the minute hand was already upside down. We got some punches in the plate and in the balance cock, so who knows what we're going to see. You want to, if you don't use the right jewel, now you have to start adjusting the escapement, the lock, total lock, and things like that. So we don't, like I said, I don't know what we're going to find in here, but if anything has been tampered with, I like this setup a lot, because we could take it back to factory very, very easily. And with the banking pins adjustable like that, it's not too much of an issue. So now, before we take the movement out, we have to let down the power, which is one of the most important things that we need to do. Now, one of the key things to remember is no marking of the movement whatsoever. So I got a piece of pegwood here that I use for disassembly, and then I have a plastic sort of pencil which I use to aid in the assembly. That way nothing is being scratched. I do not use, I have 1 pair of brass tweezers here and a few steel ones, and I have another pair of brass on my other bench. Whenever I'm touching screws, then I use steel tweezers. Whenever I'm touching any of the bridges, I mean, I'm not 100%, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'll grab the wrong one, but 99% of the time, I grab the bridges with the brass because I just don't want to scratch. Same thing too with the steel wheels, brass only, or when we're disassembling Rodico. And one of the big things that I have here, and this was taught to me by someone, which is very, very good quality control. Rodico I only use when I'm disassembling and also when I'm doing my pre-cleaning and doing the cleaning. I do not use Rodico at all when I'm doing the assembly. So all of the oil takes time. What we find is Rodico, if you see under a microscope, when you're doing the assembly, it leaves a residue. Okay, so I don't want to use it on anything because we don't want to contaminate the oil. Because when we contaminate the oil, again, your service interval goes down. So everything that we're doing, the reason for the cleanliness of the movement, the proper oiling, how much oil and where it goes. We'll go through that on this assembly and on this service. But I do not use Rodico on a watch once it's been cleaned. It's a standard rule that I have. I don't want any contamination. If somebody's paying me to do work, I want to have that service interval last as long as it can. So, for example, if we're oiling a yoke on a watch, the yoke where it intertwines with the setting lever. It's very, very important in the winding mechanism, the setting lever spring, the yoke, all of that. Sometimes I see a lot of people, they're over oiling, and you really only want a grease in those particular places at the points of contact. Okay, you don't want to start putting oil on top, because what happens is it starts to spread, and once it starts to spread, it attracts dust, especially in a pocket watch, because these cases, I mean, they're not sealed as much as we'd like them to be. So the dust does get in there very, very quickly, and it does diminish the service interval. So now if you're looking at, a 5 or 7 year service interval, if everything was done right, it starts going down. Like it could be, 2, 3, 4 years, who knows what it is, right? So now it's costing the customer more money because they have to bring the watch in more often. So that's one of the things where here it's understood that I have to get a service interval towards a certain amount. Like if I'm doing a 1 year warranty on a service for somebody, it's not like I only want the watch to run good for 1 year and that's it, the warranty is done. No. I'm looking at having the watch run properly with the new synthetic oils. 5 years is where I'm looking at. That's my benchmark from there. So if I'm putting way too much oil, not enough oil, not cleaning properly, if I do that job and I'm doing things really, really rush, and I don't spend the time on the watch, I might save the customer some money, but in the long run, it actually costs them more, because now the watch is coming in more often. So that's where the toss-up goes. But I just did some repricing for myself. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm in downtown Toronto. I'm very close to Bay and College. The mailbox or the address that I have on my website is for my mailing address. My workshop is kept isolated. It's not open to the public. It keeps my costs down greatly. So I can pick up and drop off in the Toronto area, or people could ship things to me. So it keeps my costs down, and I transfer that cost back to the customer. So I got a really good deal on rent. When COVID was on, unfortunately, it was not very good for a lot of people, but I sort of started my business last year. I found the place, the rent was good. So I figured I would extend that savings onto my clients. So I just want to let everybody know. So if you're interested in getting a watch serviced, please reach out to me. You can check on thecanadianwatchmaker.com. My email is there, contact information. and we can go from there on getting some watches done. But again, that's the reason why I'm doing these videos. These aren't really an instructional for somebody who's looking to become a watchmaker, because when I'm working on the watch, it's not like I'm teaching. There's a lot of things that I may forget to say, or something that I'm doing and I'm not vocalizing it. So this is more for our clients to say, hey, this is the way things are done. This is the way we handle things here, or this is the way I handle things here. And yeah, this is how we go about doing watches. So back to this watch here. So we now have the balance off, and we want to let down the power in the watch. So again, I use pegwood. I don't like using any steel tweezers on the click. So this is the click here. So we want to reverse the power on the click and have everything come down and release. That way we don't damage anything and we're good to go. So on initial inspection here, and when we're doing our disassembly, it's always good to check things through. So we do have a couple of case screws that are different. So either we can match those up, or this one might need a little bit of polishing. Now we know some of the jewels have been changed here, or the screws, because all of these here are gold in color and this one here is a stainless steel. So together with the punches and the holes and the second and the minute hand being upside down, we do have a light scratch that's there. But for the most part, the screws are in pretty good shape. This one's been replaced here. So now let's work on taking the movement out. And yeah, we'll go from there, and then remove the dial and go from there. I like doing this way. I'm going to leave that one in. Doesn't want to pop out, but it will hold from there. So one of the most important things you can get as a watchmaker is a really good cushion top. It is absolutely a necessity in the workshop. So now we're going to unscrew. So we'll put that aside. We're going to replace the glass on that. So now we have the watch. You gotta be very, very careful here with the dial. We want everything to just fall right out. Now, let's take a look. The case is a little banged up. There is a lot of the gold filled, but I am gonna reuse this case until I find something that's in better condition. Through my searches as I go, maybe one day I'll find something a little bit nicer for that. The movement does deserve something with the history and everything to have a nice case. So you can see the screw here. Now, what I like to do also, that I just sort of forgot, and I apologize, it's sort of a staple, especially with these old watches. Whenever I'm handling them, I don't want to get... I do like the feel. I don't use finger cuts on both hands. I do like the feel of the screwdriver on the hand. That way I could feel exactly what's going on. So there's the lever. So now we have to remove the dial. So one other thing that I noticed with this watch, I don't know if we're capable of fixing it or not. And if you could see it through the video, the dial is actually not centered. Oh shoot. No. Sorry about that. My video stopped and I'm not too sure where it stopped. Oh boy. Yeah, it looks like it's still recording. I apologize. Running a little bit low on battery. I'm not gonna have this video going too much longer. I'm just gonna take off the dial here and then we'll call it a day, and then I'll work on the next one. But we're just at the point now where I'm gonna remove the dial. But what I wanted to show everybody was, I don't know if you could see it through there, the dial is actually not centered on the watch. So one of the issues that arises is if it's not centered properly, the pipe of the hour hand or sometimes the hand rubs on the dial. So one, you're going to get damage on the dial, and then two, the amplitude drops or the watch could stop altogether. So it's one of the things you want to watch out for. So we'll take that into account. So now we want to remove the dial. Now this is one of the screwdrivers that you really got to be careful. Is this screwdriver? So you don't want to completely remove. We don't want to remove the dial screws completely because they'll fall out, and they could be a little tedious to put back in. So that's two. There's one more. That's the first one, I think. There's the... There we are. I missed this one. So you don't want to force these. It's very, very important that you take your time. You don't want to go too fast, and we don't want to damage anything. So let me just get some pegwood here. So sorry about that. Just hit the camera. We're still in focus there. So when I'm working with the pegwood, I usually have one end that's sharpened kind of like a shovel, flat, and another one that's at a point. And with those two, I can get things done. So you see sometimes people using screwdrivers for this. We don't want to mar anything that's on the watch. So we just want to take our time. It's very, very important with these dials. With the wrong amount of pressure, they break. So we don't know what we're gonna find under here. So it looks like this one here still needs a little bit of clearance. Let's see if that does it. There we go. Nice and slow. Because what we don't want is to damage these dials, and we don't want to add any hairline cracks to them. And it looks like everything is okay with the posts. So that's really, really, really important. Okay, so now we're gonna put this somewhere to protect it. And let's see how much further we have to go. There we go. On disassembly. So I'm gonna go a little bit further for today. So one of the things you want to check right away is you want to look at the screws. We've got the pivot here for the second hand located at 6 o'clock. We've got the lever for the keyless works. Now I did have to adjust, I did a service a couple years ago where I actually had to file and adjust one of the levers. So we could see here, is that loose? So what you want to do at this time is you want to inspect things. Let's take the dial washer off. That was installed right. And we want to take a look at the hour wheel. Now with the hour wheel, you want to check to see, make sure all the teeth are okay on initial inspection. You want to make sure the post that's coming up is in good shape. All the teeth look good there. And I'm taking my time doing this so people could see exactly what goes into that. The post looks good too. So then we have the cannon pinion there. I'll take that off on another video. But again, I wanted to go through and double check the screws here because one of the screws were changed on the other side and we could see the same thing here too. One of the balance jewels, the screw is changed to a stainless steel. So we're going to have to be careful with that. They may have changed it because the threads are gone or who knows. And also, this is working, but we could see that I don't want to use it anymore. It's not nice and smooth as it should be because there's no lubrication that's left on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it... Let's just check this real quick. So we can see here there's also some wear on this minute wheel around the outside right here. You can see the groove that's in there. That's from this part here of the main plate. So when the watches are not serviced either properly or serviced at the right interval, a little bit of lubrication is required on that. That way, when it's moving around, it's not cutting into the brass. I don't know if you could see that through the video there. Let's see if you could see that or not. You could see the groove that's developed in that minute wheel. So that's one of the things about not being serviced either properly or in the right intervals. So this all takes, this all takes time. So for example, if I was servicing this and this had gone down, quite a bit, it could actually stop the watch because the groove gets too much and then it stops. Or the amplitude can drop on the watch. So, not having a watch serviced, it... now you have to start replacing parts. This does look okay. It doesn't look like it's too far gone, but you can definitely see the effect of that rubbing on there. So for now, I think I'm going to call it a day. Thank you so much. Again, you could, if you're interested in getting me to do some work for you, you could log on to my website, thecanadianwatchmaker.com. I do have watches for sale there, tools, bracelet. I've got a great lineup of bracelets, and I have some other ones that are not on there. So yeah, I got some great JB Champion bracelets that are on my website, and I've got a couple of. There's one. It's not made by Tropic, but it's a black Tropic band from the 70s in a black, and I think it's in a 19 mil. Hard to find, not rare, but hard to find in new old stock. So yeah, if you're looking for some of the NASA bracelets also from JP Champion, I do have some of those left. I did sell a few of them, but there's some on the website. I got some great mesh bracelets on there too that are made in Germany. I think they're from the 60s. One of them still has the original packaging on there. They look really, really good on vintage chronographs. So yeah, thanks again. And next Sunday from here, I'll start the next video and we'll go from there. Thanks. Take care.